Ferdinand. Today we're going to be talking about the Fondo 185, how the 185 fund, right?
Yeah.
It's a new regulation in Puerto Rico that is going to be particularly good for those who live in Puerto Rico, but it's also presenting opportunities for people who are outside of Puerto Rico to invest in the island. Correct?
Yes.
So I know you're not selling any products here or anything. You're just trying to inform, right, about this regulation and how it can benefit people so that they can evaluate if that makes sense for them. Correct?
Absolutely, Juliana. Thanks for the opportunity. And basically, what you mentioned is that this is not a soliciting or anything like that. Basically, we're trying to inform of the law of 185, which is the Act 60 in the Puerto Rico Revenue Ruling, Treasury Department. You know that in 2014, Puerto Rico defaulted in his debt,
Mm-hmm.
in its debt, and basically that caused a dislocation in the financing of a lot of money and capital investment in Puerto Rico. The government at that time, Gobernador Alejandro Garcia Padilla, and his administration created different rulings and different acts in order to attract foreign investors or non-resident investors to the island as an investment opportunity. That's where the famous Act 20 and Act 22, which we will be talking in probably in a future seminar that we will be advertising very soon. But basically, those acts were related to attract capital to Puerto Rico. At the same time, it allowed private funds, private equity funds that they are in Puerto Rico to have a favorable status, tax status, and tax treatment for those investors that invest in those private equity funds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the Law 185 is. It allows private capital funds to have, for investors, a 60% deduction of their contribution. It means if you invest $100,000, you will have $60,000 tax deductible against your
If
adjusted
you
gross
live,
income.
and that's if you live in the island of Puerto Rico,
If you live in the
right?
island of Puerto
So
Rico.
now, if you don't live in the island of Puerto Rico, how is this a benefit or an opportunity for those who don't live in the island of Puerto Rico but might be interested in investing in Puerto Rico?
Well, that's a great question. And perhaps the answer is that now, as you know, in the United States, the new president is asking for pay all the stimulus that we had in the economy in the COVID-19. And
Yeah.
now he's launching an infrastructure program, very ambitious infrastructure program, kind of like a New Deal with Franklin
Yeah.
Roosevelt. Okay,
Yeah.
kind of like a New Deal. And basically, what happened is that that's going to have a price. So, you know that in the United States, there's a lot of inequality of income. There are people are making killings, and there are people are struggling. So, what is going to happen? The Biden administration is trying to reduce that gap by increasing taxes in the corporate level, in the income level, over $400,000 of income, and at the same time, the capital gain.
Mm-hmm.
This fund for a non-resident of Puerto Rico will be a great alternative for tax-exempt income because the fund has 100% capital gain tax distributions tax-free. So you can earn capital gains and not pay taxes on that capital gain because you're invested in the fund. And that
Yeah.
allows for an alternative investment for someone that is looking outside of the tax-exempt municipal bonds, which is one of the few alternatives tax-exempt in the United States, to probably capture a higher return, probably had a diversification, and probably allow them to have more growth in an inflationary environment that looks like it, interest rates are going to go up going in the next 12 to 18 months. So a person that invests in a municipal bond and they fix that rate for 10 years, it's very highly probable that the bond will depreciate in value if interest rate goes up and if inflation goes up. Because of the structure of these private equity funds that they're structuring below 185, and they allow diversification geographically, not only in Puerto Rico, but you can invest in the United States too. That will allow some capital gains and some growth much higher, and probably like a small inflation hedge if interest rate goes up and is tax exempt. So that will be the benefit for someone in the United States.
Okay.
But basically, there is another benefit that that allows for a lot of investors, in the sense that that now with the crypto market, you have real estate. Believe it or not, those are areas that the law 185 allow to invest and have long-term capital gains exempt. So you are seeing an inflow of a lot of hedge fund managers going to Puerto Rico through the Act 20 and taking advantage of the law 185.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because, like you said, regulations are changing, and Puerto Rico is part of the United States for certain things, but for others, it's independent. So that allows, it's not loopholes; it's just different kinds of opportunities for certain individuals, depending on their economic plan and their economic situation in
Yes.
their business or the home. Now, let me ask you something. That law affects investments that are done personally, or can businesses invest as businesses and still take advantage of those laws?
Usually, businesses, entities like LLCs, limited liability companies, subchapter S companies, they will benefit greatly from the tax structure of this instrument. Because basically
Okay.
what will happen is that, remember that those corporations, those entities are passed through to the member or through the shareholder. So
Yeah.
automatically all deductions or income that is tax exempt will go through that structure. If it's a C corporation, that's a different animal, because remember that C corporations, they have double taxation. Probably it will be tax exempt for the corporation, but when that money goes as a dividend to the shareholder, probably you're not going to get the benefit of the tax exempt. So structures like pass-throughs and individuals, they will really get the whole benefit of the structure of the taxes, of the tax structure of the 185 at 60 type of private equity fund.
Okay. That's actually really interesting. And I do think that it's, like you said, it's particularly interesting to people who are not living in Puerto Rico anyways, because of the changes that we're living right now. If those changes were not happening, maybe it wouldn't be as active, but because of the things that are changing right now, we wanted to have this video in English, right? You wanted to explain it in English so that those who are in Puerto Rico can also understand how this could be interesting to them. Plus,
Yes,
we see a lot of Americans who have moved to Puerto Rico anyways. So
I will tell you one thing, and I've been very surprised. A lot of people, they don't know that even Puerto Rico is part of the United States. We are
it is.
considered a territory. We are considered a commonwealth. So we are a territory of the United States. For corporations, for the IRS tax code, we're under the IRS 933. So Puerto Rico is it's very interesting because for corporations, we are considered foreign. And for US,
Exactly. That's what I'm
but
like.
as an individuals,
Mainly,
we're considered as US citizens.
exactly,
So
exactly.
because of 933, allow us to have these acts that are independent from the IRA's rulings. And that's it's not a loophole. It's just a reality. It's what it is. That was basically the treaty that we have with United States. In exchange,
and that can be beneficial depending on the time and depending on the economic
that's why
situation of each person.
That's why you're seeing a lot of these individuals or corporations like hedge fund managers moving their operation to Puerto Rico. And of course, there are some requirements, but usually Act 20 allow you to live in Puerto Rico 6 months of the year and pay only 4% tax and take benefits of the deductions of the Act 60 and Law 185 too. So it's really a very attractive alternative.
Maybe I should move to Puerto Rico.
Well, there is a lot of benefits on it. Of course, the island is getting up now. It's starting to attract business and move into after Maria. Remember, we got a very...
That's another question. That's actually another question I had, because a lot of people are like, okay, so let's say I invest in Puerto Rico, but didn't Puerto Rico have like a bad situation? Didn't they just go through like these hurricanes and all these problems in the past few years? So, even though the situation seems like interesting, some of them may feel like, okay, is it okay for me to invest in Puerto Rico? Is it still safe for me to invest in Puerto Rico? So I think that's a question, for those who feel like iffy because they don't know the island and they don't know how things really are there. What would you tell them?
I think that basically, if you look at the market in Puerto Rico and the special relationship that Puerto Rico has with Orlando, we got almost San Juan is in Orlando. The total population of the San Juan city, I'm not talking about the metropolitan area, which is around 1.6 million, of course, including, but looking at the San Juan, the municipality of San Juan, basically that's what you have in Orlando, that type of community. So there is an exchange, cultural exchange, an exchange of diverse opportunities of capital that people have in Orlando investing in Puerto Rico because they have the dual system. But the thing is that for a Puerto Rican, for an investor in the United States, Puerto Rico is a very safe place. It's very steady. We had a situation that happens to all the economies, even United States in 2008. But right now, Puerto Rican real estate is really hot. Really, the appreciation has been comparable to the Orlando market. So from not only from the tax perspective, but if you look at it from the real estate investment opportunity, for example, if you have rental income for housing, it's tax exempt. You don't pay taxes if you rent properties for housing. The income that you receive from that income property is tax exempt. So those are things that are there to take the advantage. And New Orleans went through Katrina and they have to do the same thing. South Africa went through the same situation when they had to raise capital after the dual currency system, after the white supremacy that we had there. They had to have a transition that basically Nelson Mandela had to raise capital and start selling South Africa to the world again. I think Puerto Rico is going through the same stage. It's going through the same process. The only benefit is that you have the U.S. There is Puerto Rico has been a possession of the United States since the Hispano-American War of 1898. So you're not talking about a relationship of few years. You're talking about 120 years, 122 of relationship. And
like we said, they're part of the United States. It's for some things they're part of it, and for others they are able to act independently. And that allows certain opportunity situations, whether you're there or here, depending on your
But you
what
know, the
you
good thing about it is that if you compare Puerto Rico with Latin America, where you have these discrepancies, huge discrepancies of high income with low income, Puerto Rico has a middle class still, and the people,
yeah,
they receive the benefits, not all the benefits that the United States residents receive, but they get some benefits. So we can really somewhat, um, it's a buffer
yeah,
of income inequality in the island. But the opportunity is there. Puerto Rico basically, United States has control of the commerce in Puerto Rico.
yeah,
Everything that we consume has to go through Jacksonville. So
true,
that's the only way that we transport goods from the United States to Puerto Rico through the marine.
yeah,
They control the transportation system. Most of the products are from the United States. It's a great consumer. It's a great consumer. It's a consumption market. So it's a don't
it's
believe
a stable
that.
market. It's a stable market to be in. And people don't have to have the idea or the concept that it's like investing in other in certain parts of South America. Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. and it has a more or less stable economy as well. So
Well, it has. You are from Spain, and remember that before we came a possession of the United States in 1898, we were part of Spain. La Corte de Cádiz
yeah,
were our Washington D.C. at that time. It
sure,
was Spain. So we have a mixture. For example, if you go to Puerto Rico, you're going to have a mixture of a Spanish tradition, European tradition with US. In the later years, for the last 25, 30 years, we have become more Americanized, to be honest. Even I feel it. When I was raised in Puerto Rico, I was more, I would say, I was more European in the sense of more Spanish tradition. Uh,
yeah,
but now, in the last 25, 30 years, Puerto Rico has become more US. And
yeah,
perhaps, so you know, over 70+%, they want some kind of relationship with the United States. Only
yeah,
5 to 10% of the population, probably less, probably 5%, they want to be independent. The rest want to have some type of relationship with the United States. You can define it like as a commonwealth, keep it like it is, or
mm-hmm.
just asking for statehood. That is around 36% of the population. So
So it is a market that makes sense for people who live in the mainland when it comes to the US.
I think it's an emerging market. Let's put it that way. Let's put it in terms of investment. It's an emerging market within United States. You know, there is a joke about
Exactly.
Miami that the best thing is that it's close to the United States, that is in United States, Miami, because basically they consider Miami as another country where we live.
Yeah, yeah. Miami and New York, they're their own countries. Yes.
Puerto Rico is kind of has the same type of joke. The good thing is
Yeah.
that, but we are an island. We are outside of the continental US, but we are part of the United States. So if you want to enjoy some of those benefits, and that make sure, that's why most of these people of the Act 20, they are really looking very deeply and very seriously about Puerto Rico as probably an emerging market within the United States. And basically, these laws are made to attract business. We had great relationships in Puerto Rico. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm not talking about putting everything there, but I'm talking about probably diversifying because it's an attractive market as it is very cheap. I will tell you that in comparison with United States, you are probably looking at 30 cents in the dollar, 40 cents in the dollar for properties, especially income properties. So the cap rates over there, they are in the 7, 8, 9%. It's like going back to the United States or Miami in 2007, 2008. So basically, that's the type of opportunity that you can have. And if you have the vision to hang in there for the 5, 6, 7 years, I think you will be rewarded.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you, Ferdinand, for talking about this new laws, regulations, and also the opportunity that Puerto Rico represents for people that are both inside and outside of Puerto Rico.
And just for the record, Juliana, I don't represent the government. I don't represent any party. I am just a Puerto Rican, very proud of my island. I'm basically telling the people that we're open for business. I don't work for the tourism department or any economic development. And by the way, we're not soliciting any of the investment. Basically, we're telling it like it is. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. And we hope everyone found it interesting. If you have any questions, you can always contact Ferdinand Ruano. Just go to their website, passeasysolutions.net. And then you can submit any queries or call the office. The phone number's over there as well. We'll put it here on screen, and you can contact them for any other questions you may have. Thank you again.
Thank you.